When teams have a clear goal and aligned, actionable steps, it's easy to make their vision a reality. In this episode of This Meeting Sucks, we're going to walk you through the fifth phase in our MeetingMakers Framework, mapping, where we break down your team's visioning into a roadmap for the future. We'll discuss the importance of allowing your team to own the process themselves and take you through our goal setting and action planning agenda template, which you can access for free on Session Lab using the link in the description. By taking this step, your team will have the tasks it needs to input into their project management system, ensuring that the team can start the important work of making the vision a reality, one step at a time. I'm your host, Lauren Green, meeting coach and facilitation trainer, here to help you unsuck your meetings one episode at a time. I've helped hundreds of professionals and organizations through leading inclusive, engaging, and productive meetings, and now I'm offering this podcast to help you do the same. Think of this podcast as an ongoing workshop, where each time you tune in, you'll get a bite-sized nugget of knowledge you can apply right away. If you lead meetings or might someday, you're in the right place. Let's make your meetings work. At a state university, leadership of an interior design program had a vision. A board of faculty and alumni that offered support and guidance to students to help them prepare for a career in interior design. At the start of a new year, the 20-person board only had 2 hours to come up with their goals for the year and figure out how to make that vision a reality. In advance of their meeting, leadership identified a few topics that they wanted to focus on: fundraising, alumni relations, faculty development, and board membership, but were open to other suggestions. The process we used was simple. After our normal meeting opening process, which we cover in Season 1, we hung flip charts around the room, one for each of the pre-selected topics with space for additional ideas. And then we invited the group to identify specific and measurable goals for each one. Before sending them off into breakouts, we gave them an example goal so they knew how to phrase them. Participants could roam around the flip charts or stay at the one that they were most interested in. We love this flexible style of meeting because it allows participants to work in the areas that interest them the most, and it can also produce some of the best ideas and keep people more engaged and energized. They came up with some excellent goals. In the alumni category, for example, they came up with a goal to establish an alumni mentorship program. And with some prompting, the group was able to get more specific about the number of alumni they would like to recruit for the mentoring program. We gave participants about 45 minutes to brainstorm and then invited them to go to their favorite chart and summarize it cohesively on a new flip chart. This resulted in a clear list of goals that could be easily written up in their strategic plan. The group also used sign-up sheets to break into working groups. Each group was tasked with finalizing their goals after the meeting into something that could be accomplished within the next year and identifying an action plan that would help them get there. Groups can accomplish a lot in a short amount of time with the right process. Using breakouts where participants can work on many things in parallel rather than one at a time creates a fast-paced and energizing process. The use of visual elements like flip charts ensures that ideas are captured, people feel heard, and ultimately, quicker decisions are made. In the last episode, we covered mission and vision. The mission is the why, the vision is what we're aiming for. This episode on goal setting and action planning is about how we're going to get there. Most teams find this process easier when you start with high-level goals and then break those goals down into actions that can be mapped into a roadmap or project management tasking system. Sometimes goal setting can happen at a higher leadership level, with the goals then handed down to the teams. Other times, teams create the goals themselves based on direction from senior leadership, customer needs, or both. Whatever the case, goal setting and action planning conversations are part of what helps team members buy into the work that they are doing and commit to achieving results. We tend to feel closer to and more passionate about our work when we've had the opportunity to bring our own voice and ideas into the process. Teams may skip this step or gloss over it with a short conversation, not giving enough time for feedback and clarifying questions. Some teams who do initiate a conversation about goals may ask the question too broadly and get a wall of stickies that they have no idea how to sort. In this episode, we will give you an easy method to identify goals aligned to your vision and then break the goal into a manageable set of tasks that can be integrated into whatever tool or system your team uses for managing their work. Ideally, this is something the team does together annually and revisits at least once a year to share lessons learned and pivot as needed. For teams following the Agile method, your goals may start pretty high level and get more specific as you go through the learning and development process. If you're the team lead, goal setting and action planning conversations are a key part of your job to ensure that team members are on the right path and headed in the same direction. The goal of goal setting is ultimately to save time in the long run by investing some time and effort up front. When people know the goals and actions, there is less confusion and hopefully fewer meetings on your calendar and emails in your inbox. We want teams to feel clear about their direction and able to prioritize aligned with the vision. Even better is if the team leaves feeling empowered and enthusiastic about their work and the mission. So, what does it actually look like to set goals and actions with your team? First, if you haven't listened to the last episode on visioning the future, pause here and go back. Without a clear vision, there's nothing to anchor the goals to. Assuming that you do have a clear vision, sometimes called a target or objective, your goals are what it looks like and the steps that are taken as this vision is realized. I like to say that a goal is something you can check the box on when it's completed. Collaboration is not a goal. A goal should be measurable. You may have heard of SMART goals, SMART, which are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. The most actionable goals are written as a short phrase or sentence that represents a specific and measurable outcome. For instance, if you have a vision for a well-organized closet that you love getting dressed in the morning, a goal for this vision might be closet shelving that holds all of my clothes and shoes and is installed within budget, or closet design leaves space for me to add a partner's clothes in the future. These are measurable outcomes, and there's something else that you might notice. What tense are they written in? If you said present tense, well done. We are taking a leaf out of the appreciative inquiry philosophy created by David Cooperrider. There is a lot to appreciative inquiry, but the concept that we're highlighting here is known as the future present statement. In a future present statement, you write something that you want to have in the future in the present tense. When doing so, we mentally start to imagine the steps to get there more easily. It makes the goal feel more real and achievable. We want real and achievable because the next step after hearing clear goals is actions. In the closet example, the goal of installed within budget implies several smaller steps. Researching closet materials, getting quotes from several installers, comparing the cost to doing a self-installation. And these smaller steps could be added to a task list to be accomplished within a reasonable time frame. My guess is that the types of goals you need to create with your team are a bit more complex than designing the closet of your dreams. After the break, we will dive into what an agenda for goal setting and action planning would look like for your team. As always, you can find our free Session Lab template linked in the description, along with our mural online whiteboard or printer-friendly poster templates available for purchase. Whether you're new to leading meetings, shifting careers, or stepping into more visible leadership, our one-on-one training program is designed to grow your skills and confidence as a meeting facilitator. Unlike most programs that focus on theory, our trainings are hands-on, personalized, and built around your individual goals and experience. With live coaching, shadowing, and real project experience, you will walk away with a toolkit that's not just learned, but lived. If you are ready to step into facilitation your way, reach out at makemeetings.work/contact to get started and learn more. So let's dive into our goal setting and action planning template. Our session starts at 9 a.m. and it is a full day session. However, you can always modify the templates by splitting them up into smaller virtual meetings or by choosing which activities you may want to focus on. But assuming that you've got a full day for this effort, we always start with a welcome and kickoff that could be done by the team lead or the sponsor. And we've got some recommended talking points for you in our session lab template. We'll always follow that with an overview of agenda and agreements. And we have given a few recommended meeting agreements for this specific session. However, you may have your own agreements that you prefer to use for your meetings. We then recommend doing introductions so that everybody knows who's in the room. However, if the team already knows each other, you can simply do a quick go around and have each person share a hope for today's session. Then we've got an energizer, and we call this energizer goal storytelling. The purpose is to create a mindset of goal setting. First, invite participants to reflect on a time when they achieved a personal goal and consider what helped them achieve it. Then ask participants to find a partner or trio and share their story. After 5 minutes, instruct participants to then find a new partner or trio and share again. Continue for another round if time allows, then reflect as a group. You might ask, what needs to happen for a goal to be achieved? Or how might we use this in our team goal setting? Again, the idea here is to get participants in the mindset of what setting a goal and achieving it looks like so they can start to think about how to do this in a team setting. Then we're giving a few minutes to present the existing vision and frame the goal setting conversation. So this would be time to briefly share the existing vision for the team or organization and any organizational goals that the team needs to align with as a way of framing the conversation. The person doing this presentation can note that the goals set today should align with the team's overall vision and organizational goals. And then identify the time frame and parameters for the goals that the team should follow. For example, we will be identifying no more than 5 goals for the next year. Whatever that is for you, you can change it up, but just be clear. Then take a few minutes to invite and answer any clarifying questions about the vision and goal parameters. For some teams, reviewing lessons learned from the past year or acknowledging current realities may be helpful. And you can incorporate activities for these from episodes 4 through 6 of the podcast series. Some teams may already have goals that they've been working on that need to be considered, so reviewing those existing goals may be important to cover here as well. After this presentation, which we've given about 15 minutes for, we then have our brainstorming goals section that's aimed to help the team identify goals aligned to the team vision. First, silently invite participants to write goal statements for the coming year, or whatever time frame you're working with. One idea per sticky note, being as specific as possible and writing them in the present tense. For example, if you're a university, you could say, we have started an alumni mentoring program and recruited 20 alumni. You could invite participants to try to either reframe the lessons learned or perhaps scale accomplishments. For example, we are creating more accomplishment through activity. Or instead of lessons learned, we are activity. Participants may choose to align goals with specific categories of work, such as these modeled after the SIPOC, SIPOC model: supplies, inputs, processes, outputs, customers. Participants can hang on to their sticky notes or quietly add them to a flip chart or wall chart. If categories like the SIPOC example are used, participants might add their brainstormed goals to the corresponding category area. And after about 10 minutes or when the group seems to be slowing down, invite participants to observe what they came up with. You could ask, what clarifying questions do you have about these? Are there any that go together? Let's form clusters. Are there any that you particularly like? Add a +1 to those using a marker, sticky dot, or virtual equivalent. Here's a tip for this section. If the team has existing goals they want to continue working on, they can be pre-added to the flip chart or wall space. In our agenda, we've got a 15-minute break, and then we have consolidation and rewriting of the goals. This is aimed to ensure that goals are consolidated to a reasonable number that is achievable within the identified time frame. First, remind the group of the time frame and parameters stated earlier. Then, divide the clusters of goals amongst individuals or small groups depending on the size of the group. Some individuals or groups may need to work on more than one cluster depending on the number of goals. Invite them to consolidate each cluster into a specific goal statement that can be achieved within the time frame. Give participants about 20 minutes to work on their statements. Ask them to write the drafted statements on the top of a flip chart or virtual equivalent, one statement per flip chart, and then hang those on a wall. Invite participants to roam through the goal statements and suggest wording changes. And that's what we've got up until our lunch break, which we've given an hour. And after the lunch break, we are offering a energizer called competitive puzzle building. And this is aimed to prime thinking around consolidating ideas and creating a unified path forward. Materials that you'll need for this are jigsaw puzzles with no more than 25 pieces. For online meetings, you can use a virtual jigsaw puzzle application. As an option, you could have some prizes on hand for the winning team. First, supply either individuals or small groups with their puzzle. Invite the individuals or groups to complete the puzzle. You can incentivize participants by offering prizes for the first individual or team to finish. Then reflect as a group. What did you have to do to be successful in this activity? What would you do differently next time? How is the process we're using today like a puzzle? And how can we use these lessons learned? After the Energizer, we have goal finalization and voting. Aim to, of course, help the team identify the final goals that they want to move forward with. Send participants back to the original goal that they worked on to review feedback. Then invite these groups to write a final goal statement that incorporates the feedback. Write these goal statements on large sticky notes, I recommend 6 by 8, and place them all together on the wall or a new flip chart. Once all the goals are written and posted, invite the group to vote on their top goals. You might consider using these voting methods. Each person has 3 dots to place on their favorite goals, or each person gets 10 points they can allocate among the goals with no more than 5 points to any single goal. Then you, of course, would tally up the votes and invite a final consensus check. Ask participants, are there any objections to these being our top goals? If you are looking for 5 goals, then you would say, are there any objections to these being our top 5 goals? If so, invite the objectors to note what would resolve their objection. Depending on the complexity of their objection, you might decide to either invite the leader to weigh in and make a final call, invite participants to break out and brainstorm a solution, or note the objection on a flip chart and ensure that there is a next step to resolve that objection. A tip for this is to use online polling tools like Mentimeter that are great for uploading final goals and initiating a vote anonymously. In our agenda, we've got a 15-minute break, and you're going to need it because during the break, you'll need to place the final goals around the room as stations. For online meetings, you would label your breakout rooms with a short goal title. The next section of the agenda is brainstorming tasks and actions, and we've given this an hour. Divide into groups, 1 group per goal. Participants can choose which goal to work on, or the leader can assign goals to individuals based on their roles. Invite participants to break down the goal into small, manageable tasks, 1 task per sticky, without worrying too much about the time frame for now. For example, establish criteria for ideal alumni mentors, design application and evaluation system, launch application process, identify mentors, schedule program orientation. Give participants about 20 to 30 minutes to work on these, and then they can roam around and view and add to other goals. If you're doing this online, we recommend giving participants the freedom to move themselves into and out of breakouts, but they can also be assigned to virtual breakouts by a tech host. Use a virtual whiteboard or a shared Google Doc, for instance, to capture key tasks, and then bring participants back to the main session for the virtual poster walk. They can work in silence until the time is done. We've given another 15-minute break after this step before we get to our final step of road mapping. The goal of the road mapping section is to outline tasks on a roadmap to visualize how they fit together and identify potential roadblocks, assumptions, or dependencies. And we've given this an hour and 15 minutes. Before the meeting, you're going to want to create a template or purchase ours. And the template is a 6 to 8 foot stretch of large butcher block paper labeled with months, quarters, or years along the bottom as a timeline. The timeline is dependent on the timeline specified for achieving the goals. Transfer the goals onto a wall chart or the online equivalent, which will serve as a roadmap. Goals should be placed in a column on the left-hand side, and they can be written directly on the chart, a large sticky note, or a sheet of paper taped to the chart. There should be enough space between each goal so that they become swim lanes. Invite participants to place task stickies along the timeline, ensuring that the tasks align with their associated goals. Once all tasks are mapped, invite discussion. Are there too many tasks grouped together? Could we spread these out? Are there tasks that need to happen in a specific order? Could we move these around to make them work? It can be helpful to add team member names to tasks and attempt to identify potential parts of the year that may create bottlenecks or roadblocks. If questions or uncertainty remain as the end of the activity approaches, invite a conversation about next steps to address them. For example, what do we need to know or resolve to finalize this roadmap? How might we capture this action? Who can take the lead on it? And when does it need to happen by? The group may need to determine a functional format for the roadmap following the meeting. Some groups may already have an existing task management system that the project manager or team lead can transfer tasks into. Groups may consider creating a spreadsheet, a slide deck, or another digital version of the roadmap. If the group runs out of time, the road mapping section could be documented as a next step, potentially with a smaller group of participants. The project manager may decide to draft this on behalf of the group and share it back for feedback. Teams following an Agile project management process may decide to use the Agile method to create and prioritize their tasks into a backlog to be incorporated into the release and sprint planning process. Lastly, in the last few minutes, we have some time for the leader to share parting words. Make sure to thank all the participants for their participation, clarify next steps, and as an option, let them know when the activity will be repeated or revisited. When your team's goals are clear and actions mapped, everything else starts to click into place. Mapping is where your vision stops being abstract and starts to feel real. We hope this episode gave you ideas for how to turn your team's vision into movement and how to make those big ideas something everyone can actually walk toward, one step at a time. You can download our free goal setting and action plan template on Session Lab using the link in the description. And if your team could use support with this process or any phase of the MeetingMakers Framework, we'd love to help. Until next time, let's make your meetings work. This podcast was written by Lauren Green and produced by Caitlin Murray. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a few seconds to rate and review so future meeting makers can find our community. You can find our next Meeting Makers Academy workshop on our website at www.makemeetings.work/academy. Want help with your next meeting? Reach out at makemeetings.work/contact and we'll set up time to chat.